So one of the most beautiful things about putting on a conference is the unknown about what happens with speakers. And unfortunately, we found that our keynote for this afternoon was not going to be able to make it. There is a story, though, that goes with it, and that is that she apparently thought it was last month initially in Baltimore, right?
Yep.
In Baltimore. So she went to Baltimore from New York at the wrong month and the wrong dates, but that's neither here nor there. She was completely aware of it, but had other issues that arose that prevented her from being here. So really what we're going to be doing today for this period of time, for this time slot, is really to provide you with a way for you to speak as members to the leadership team. And so we're going to answer any question you have. So we have an AMA, Ask Me Anything. And between Gerard and I, and of course other members of the leadership team with GBA, we're going to answer what questions you might have. So is there a question that you've wanted to ask about GBA that you've been afraid to ask about?
And I have a question for the audience too,
Sure.
right? So if they can't think of a question, what I'd like to know from the audience is two things, right? Number one, what was it that attracted you or brought you here, right? Whether you're a guest or you're a member, what was it that attracted you? And then secondly, based on what you know about us, where would you like to see us go? What can we do as an association, right, to meet the needs of our members, right? So those are two questions that I have. And if you guys have any questions for us, Bryant is, let me just give you a real quick background. When I decided to start this association, I got a map out and identified where is the most number of government jobs anywhere in the world, the 300 cities with the most number of jobs. And I put all these pins in a map. And then we got connected on LinkedIn, and he said, why don't you come up to my podcast? And I did. It was in New Jersey, and I said, we're in the process of establishing 300 chapters. The only thing that I had done at that point is put the pins in the map. And he said, really? Wow. And that's what started our relationship. And then we then had some really huge website problems, and he agreed to host our website. And then after I got to know him and I learned about his integrity and just what an incredible human being you are, I asked him to be on my board. It took me 2 years to pick a board, right? Because I realized this was, one of the most important things that I have ever been involved in, and I couldn't put in the hands of people I didn't trust. So after the first 2 years, I asked him to be the first member of our board, and he did, and then he later became the chairman of the board. He just recently stepped down because of the term limits that are in our bylaws. But we have a very special relationship, and this is a guy that if it hadn't been for him and the support of GBA wouldn't be here. So
That's not true. He's done all the heavy lifting.
Well, anyway, yeah. So Eugene, I'm surprised you have anything to say.
Yeah, I knew you would say that, but
Wait. Where's the cape?
and this will serve temporarily. No,
It looks a little bit like a
what
noose.
attracted me to GBA is you. When we met, I looked you in the eye and I just thought, this guy just can't lie. This is a truth.
Which eye did you look in?
A long time. so honestly, it was like started with a personal kind of relationship, and then I dove into what this organization potential is, and got excited and brought some other people in, as you know.
Well, before you say another word, do I have your permission to share with this group a little bit about your background?
It depends how deep you go, and if you want me to stay alive or not.
I won't talk about the pictures. All right. So do me a favor. Turn around. No. Stand. Turn around. So I want to tell you a little bit about this guy. And again, this is typical of the kinds of people that are here in GBA. So he ended up going to some of the best schools in at that time the Soviet Union, and was involved in finance and accounting. And again, at the risk of his own personal safety, I have to be cautious about what I say. But he was involved in financial transactions at the very, 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 very top of the USSR, I guess Russia. I don't know if it was what it was then. And in 2014, when Russia invaded Crimea, he said he couldn't be part of this anymore. So he left. He went to New York. He got involved in the New York financial world, and he found out about this little thing called Bitcoin and decentralization. And he had seen the evils of the concentration of power, and so at that point he devoted his life to decentralization. And he started working. He started working with folks that put together Telegram, right? And those folks had put a token, essentially created a blockchain. And when powerful authorities said, we don't like this idea of you having this solution that we can't control, and put enormous pressure on them, they decided to open source the code. And overnight, they had thousands of developers in this decentralized place. And so at great personal expense to himself, he has been a champion for decentralization globally. And I hope I didn't say too much there.
Yeah, you didn't. Thank you. I'll live for a few more years. But Gerard, I have to respond in kind. And again, to be in all honesty, I see so many benefits in what this group is doing, but there's still two criticisms that I'm not afraid to voice day and night. Number one, you're not monetizing enough. Number two, there are not enough people that know about you. And those two criticisms are standing. Am I right? And the question for you, what keeps you going apart from GBA? What makes you a happy man?
I think about quitting all the time. No, I mean, look, I'll tell you, leading up to this event, the night before last, Kath was up all night, cutting vegetables and working and load, she and my boys were loading the trucks and doing all that stuff. And we have a great CFO. If he's watching, I hope he knows this. He has been fantastic for the organization. We were a financial train wreck, right, when he came on board. And when he peeled the onion back and he looked in all the closets, he said, "You guys are something really bad." I won't use the word publicly. And he basically forced us to get really strict, so that we paid all the people we needed to pay and stuff like that. But that meant that there was no money left for myself or Kath or our family. And so we have been, and Eugene, it's been hard. And I can't, and honestly, my CFO has made me want to quit more times than I can tell you, right? In fact, Kathy did quit. She stormed out of the office. She walked home, but then I think about what happens if I quit. I just can't do it. I mean, I just can't. So this conference has worked well because of Sean's financial discipline, right, and him forcing us to do some things we didn't want to do, but worked out great. We're actually making money on this conference, and we are paying down the debt, and we have turned the corner, so we're heading in the right direction. But Eugene, look, knowing your story, knowing all the effort that Dino's put in, I mean, I can't, knowing who you guys are, I can't walk away from it.
Yes.
So Gerard, you know me. First of all, the reason I got involved was mainly because of your cause. The reason I joined was not because of you, it's because you offered a free conference if we joined as members. But one of the things that struck me about that conference, and I've said it about all these conferences, is the fact that you really get informed panels, informed speeches. You're not hearing industry hype, you're not hearing preach to the converted, you're not hearing latest headlines. And one of the things was, I never knew of Scott Stornetta at the first big conference at the Congressional Auditorium. And I heard this guy speak. And I was like, oh my gosh, I now know a bit of history about blockchain that I never knew. And then I had to take a call. And so I'm missing it. And I'm going, I need to grab that speaker on the way out, but I'm going to miss him. And this is what happens at conferences. Speakers show up and then they just disappear. And there I am having a coffee 2 hours later, and who's standing next to me but Scott Stornetta? your speakers actually stay to be part of the overall thing. So that's when I began to see, this is something more than an average, conference group or an association. And so that's what I congratulate you on, and certainly watching it. My question for you, just to put you on the spot, if there was a blockchain association maturity model, what would be the elements?
Well, I first, before I answer that question, I have to give the credit back to Brian. So, Brian, would you like to share a little bit about how the Scott Stornetta thing came about?
Sure. So 3 years ago, 4 years ago, 5 years ago, I had a podcast. And one of the things that I was trying to do is to really educate people on the history of blockchain. Because so often, especially then, it was white hot crypto. Everything was crypto. In fact, people couldn't even make the distinction between what crypto was or even Bitcoin was and blockchain. I remember speaking at a conference where the argument by a Columbia professor, and I was debating him on that conference, was that they are one and the same. And so as a part of that, I felt there was an obligation for the entire community to know. And of course, when you read the Bitcoin white paper, at the back, there's the citations. And of course, the citations, there's 3 of them that are attributed to two people, Stuart Haber and Scott Stornetta. I'm going like, wouldn't it be kind of cool to at least interview them? And so I reached out to him. I realized that he and I have a lot in common. And it was very, very easy for me to get to him. I lived at the time in northern New Jersey, and he also lives in northern New Jersey. And so I went out to his offices in Parsippany, New Jersey, and we had scheduled a 30-minute podcast. And we ended up spending 2.5 hours just talking about absolutely everything. And it was so natural. And one of the things that I found was that here is a part of the history of this new technology that at the time was completely unknown. And of course, at that same time, just prior, was when I interviewed Gerard. And so I said, Gerard, this is a person you're going to want to bring to the conferences. And so it was really the same thing. This is not a story that's unique to me. This is a story that's unique to GBA. Lots and lots of you have helped bring people to us, to the organization, that has been very, very impactful. And so really part of it is not that, Paul, that's very nice that you said that Scott was here and it was important. You're absolutely right. But it's not just me who's doing that. It's Gerard, it's the organization, and it's all of you who are introducing people to us that makes our conferences richer and more interesting.
So I didn't want to avoid, thank you, Ryan. I didn't want to avoid your question, but it took us 2 years to come up with a blockchain maturity model, coming up with an association model on this one. But let me tell you what the elements are, I think, of this association that I think makes it different. Number one is I have people come to me all the time, and tell me how important they are. And quite frankly, when that happens, I just kind of turn off, right? We had a person today who wanted to get on stage, was, in their own words, an A-lister and could access other A-listers, and would be very, very hugely important to the organization. And I said, I'm sorry, you're not a member. I don't know you. I mean, I'm sure all these things you say about yourself are true, but those aren't the rules that we operate on. And I've had to have a conversation with a lot of people, and I said, look, I'm not interested in star power. I'm interested in firepower, right? So there are senators that could sit on the stage, and they'll tell you the exact same thing. You've heard them on every other conference. I'd rather have a program manager that's building. I'd rather have an Amelia here, right, who's actually doing stuff and building things and creating opportunities than who's actually done it. Then I get lots and lots of people who say, hey, I'm going to do it. Well, great. When you do it, we'll get you on stage. But if you're taking the time and effort to come here, you got to be able to learn something. And one of the things I'd like you to learn as a result of this conversation is hopefully we're setting a model or an example, right? There's an old saying, what you do speaks so loudly that what you say I can't hear, right? And we're, going back to your question, Paul, it's really about modeling the kind of behavior. So we talk about culture a lot, right? And the world right now is very divided. We want to solve problems, right? But the world is so divided. There's so much political tension. They're all over the place you look at it. And we want to be a place where people who have radically different opinions can have a conversation, let each other finish their sentence, right? And understand that if I'm talking to somebody who's in opposition against me, there's a reason why they think or feel that way. Well, maybe if I stopped and listened, it's generally one of three things. Either they have different facts, okay, we can talk through that, or due to their life experiences, they connect the dots differently, right? It might be if somebody has experienced racism their whole life and they see something because of their experience, whether it's true or not, if they see something, they may connect the dots a particular way that I don't, right? And it doesn't invalidate them, it doesn't make them right or wrong, but at least it lets me understand why they see things that way. And the third thing is, we may have different values, right? One person may value collective security or the community, somebody else might value independent liberty. Neither one of those are bad, they're both good, but they're different, and they will cause us to have disagreements. And if we can bring people together, we've got people that are Bitcoin maximalists, we have other people that love CBDCs and stable coins. If we can bring people together and understand that there is a place for all those things, we can be the kind of community that can solve problems, right? And I always smile, Paul, when you talk about your relationship with Eugene, right? You're a private permission blockchain, he's a public blockchain. You guys locked horns all the time, but you come to understand the value of each other and those ideas. And if we can create that here and take that out of here, we can change the world.
Other questions? Yes, Robert.
Maybe a question for both Bryant and Gerard, Robert Levin. What are the 3 milestones each of you separately would like to achieve in the next 2 or 3 years to achieve the full potential of GBA and the BMM and the other standing committees that are promoting blockchain innovation and helping the members? What would you like to achieve in terms of metrics or milestones in your strategic plan?
Well, I don't know if I could name 3. I think there's really, for me, there's 2 that I would like to see the organization achieve. The first is specifically related to the BMM. For a number of conversations that were held at the leadership level was really what is our mission, and that mission statement was a moving target. It at times seemed to be too fluid. One of the things that I found as both an insider and an outsider is watching the BMM actually coming to fruition and being able to start to create a standard that an organization like GBA should be doing. And it's always been, to me, right on the edge of success and failure. And one of the most beautiful things that I have seen now is that we're starting to see adoption. And I think that long term, I think the BMM is going to be one of the primary roles that, as a standard and a certifying body, maybe that's not the right word, certifying body, but to at least attest that certain standards are maintained. I think that is going to be very, very dramatic. And then the second one is really these conferences. One of the things that we have found every single time that Gerard and Kathy have put together with nominal help from everyone else, I mean, yeoman work are done by them, has been the dialogues that we've been able to have with people. You know, I think that is really such an incentive. That alone justifies GBA. But you throw in the BMM and that, it's really, really a killer combination for an association.
I think the first thing, I like to get people paid, right? Kyle, who you've seen at the member service desk, has been volunteering for a number of years. He's never been paid. Kathy's never been paid. We have folks in here that have done tremendous amount of work. It's awesome that we've done all this with volunteers, but one of the things that I love about the BMM is it will create revenue so that people who have been volunteering that built it can now actually start, billing for their time. So I want us to get financially viable, right? I'll never forget the Mayflower event, right, where the week before our conference, we had 4 major sponsors drop out. And I got a phone call from the Mayflower Hotel, and they said, you're short $240,000. And if you don't come up with the money by 4 p.m. today, right, we're not unlocking the ballroom tomorrow for your attendees, right? And I immediately, I first begged him, I said, listen, if we do a third by the end of the day, and I had no idea where we were going to come up with the third. I mean, I think we had like $600 in our bank account. And I said, look, if I come up with a third by today, can I do a third tomorrow, the third the next day? They said, here's what we'll let you do. If you come up with 50 grand by the end of by 4 p.m., you can come up with a balance by 3 p.m. the following day. And I called Brian, and Brian said, you got to cancel. Right? I was like, people are flying in, they're checking into the hotel now, we're not canceling. Oh, and another association, the Chamber of Digital Commerce, was having their event the day before ours, and a bunch of people came in for that one and was coming to ours. And if they had come to theirs and then came to ours and our doors were locked, it would not have looked good. That would have been the end of GBA. And so that put a little bit of stress on us. And financially, I just like to get to the point where we don't have those kind of stresses. Sure.
I know that the challenges will be overcome. I'm fully confident you're going to be viable and successful. So given that most of us here, we're here, voting with our feet, we all are confident in the mission and the leadership and the viability in the future. So that is a given in terms of if you build it, they will come, and our confidence level and our support for GBA. However, if you could interview everyone in this room, 5, 10 solutions for fundraising, make every donor an ambassador, give them a title, give them a concierge for 5% of the money goes to somebody in GBA to walk them through the...
Let me pause you for a second, because we've had a conversation like this before. I get ideas all the time. I mean, I've got thousands of people telling me what we should do, right? We just don't have the bandwidth to do it. Yeah.
He is. One of the things, we only have a few seconds left. So really, the thing that what we have found is that we have many, many ideas. And while we've been able to patch together through volunteers what we have today, which is really quite, it's impressive. I mean, organizations that have paid people don't even have this much. I mean, that's really an amazing aspect. But the other aspect of it is that we need to have enough to pay the people to actually grow this. Far too much falls on Gerard's shoulders. I mean, he's got broad shoulders, but it's a heavy weight. It's a millstone. And so part of it is that we've had these debates back and forth internally in leadership is, do we even provide the conferences for free? Paul, that's one of the issues that brought you here. Do we provide the conferences for free, or do we charge for the conferences? And what do we do for government members? Because our original premise and our original mission was to provide an association for government members to join for free, and then anyone who wasn't a government employee had to pay to join. We've had these discussions many, many times, but this event in particular has gotten us over a major, major hump, because this is the first event where we didn't just break even, or we didn't lose a tremendous amount of money, but one where we finally made money. And adding that in conjunction with the BMM, puts us on a trajectory to actually finding that stability that Gerard seeks. But part of it is this: you guys have to also invite your friends, and you need to have your associates. There shouldn't be one or two people here from an organization like the FAA. There we go. We should have more, and that applies to both government employees as well as commercial. Yep. So with that, thank you very much.